the phenomenon of cults. I'm Dr. Clinton Baldwin, and I invite you to join me in this conversation on the phenomenon of cults. Normally, when we think of cults, we think of People's Temple in Guyana, November 18, 1978, that fateful day in which 900 people committed mass suicide and died having drunk the cyanide, laced Kool-Aid. So sad. We also think of David Koresh and Branch Davidian cult in Waco, Texas, 1993, in which 76 people died. Sad situation. We also think of, in more recent time, in my home country of Jamaica, the Pathway International Kingdom Restoration Church, in which it was alleged that on October 17, 2021, the congregants were involved in some ritual worship of human sacrifice, and 2 people got their throat cut. They died. For this presentation, I wish to define a cult or a sect as an organization that gradually assumes total control of its adherents to the point that the members knowingly or unknowingly surrender all or most of their decision-making functions to the organization or to its leaders. Note carefully. Gradually, the organization gradually assumes total control of the adherents, and this happens knowingly for some people or unknowingly for others until there is a surrender of all of the decision-making functions to the organization. And let me qualify that. There may be surrender of the decision-making function in different areas. So some people will surrender their total theological decision-making function to the organization, others their political decision-making functions, and so on. So the cult, there are different kinds of cults, so to speak. There are political cults, there are religious cults. For this presentation, I'm focusing more on religious cults with respect to churches. So the concept and the phenomenon is very wide. Let's look at the total package of characteristics of a cult. In this way, we'll get a better feel, a better definition. It's best to define someone, a group, or phenomenon based on the overall presentation, its overall characteristics, than on mere one position. A number of things. One, let's begin with this. A cult normally emphasizes eschatology and prophecy. I'm speaking about Christian cults now. They normally emphasize eschatology and prophecy. Eschatology means emphasis on the last days. This world is coming to an end. There's going to be an apocalyptic, catastrophic end. And there are so many prophecies, and they can delineate the prophecies along specific timelines when things will happen according to a timetable. Most of the times, these prophetic pronouncements are negative. They're going to be disaster. So cults normally emphasize eschatology, prophecy, end of the world, that sort of thing. And the leader is usually speak with a prophetic voice. There's strong emphasis on purity and rituals and symbols. There is always the call to a higher moral standard of behavior, which on the surface appears to be good. Cults also present themselves as being the one true church on the planet. They are God's special people. They have reached a standard of Christianity, an understanding of God and doctrine and theology that the rest of Christendom and poor other churches really do not understand. And oh, if they could come up to our level, we are God's special people, the most authentic body of Christians on the planet. Our pathway, our church, our system is getting there, is going somewhere. That's one of the strong tenets of a cult. Cults are therefore characterized by close-mindedness. They're not interested in critical thinking, particularly as it relates to their established core doctrines. That which they establish as being the foundation, the identity markers, the parameters of their system ought not to be questioned. And those who question the beliefs of the organization are in serious trouble. In fact, believers are taught not to question the beliefs of the organization. Sometimes they're taught blatantly, and sometimes in more subtle ways. Believers are conditioned and taught not to question the beliefs of the organization. Such is a characteristic of a cult. There is usually a central authority figure whose words, whose pronouncement is treated as final. The Bible is usually interpreted through the writings or the teachings of this authority figure. So this authority figure says, thus said the Lord, or this is how it ought to be interpreted, or this is what the Bible is saying. And that becomes the final norm. And to deviate from that is trouble. Because you see, this special authority, charismatic figure at the head of the organization is believed or presents himself, herself, to receive special revelation from God. So if God is talking through me, the prophet, the prophetess, the apostle, the leader, who dare you to question what God has pronounced through me? So God is usually used to legitimize the leader's authority and by extension, the authority of the organization. As such, therefore, the organization is seen as being of supreme importance at all cost. Within such a setting, organizational dogmatism reigns. The Bible and all reality is interpreted through the lens of the organization, and what the group says is final. Critical and independent thinking is discouraged, and not simply discouraged, but severely reprimanded, to the extent that deviants and people who want to think differently or question will be expelled from the organization. They'll be reprimanded, and if they do not comply, certainly expulsion will happen. But you do not cross the organization. You dare not think critically. You dare not think contrary to what has been established. Those are some of the characteristics of the cult. Not only are dissented expelled from the cults, from such organization, but having been expelled, they are ostracized. They are demonized. Members are encouraged not to talk to them, not to deal with them, not to come too close to them at all. Because you see, these people are motivated by Satan. And they are poor, lost souls. So hopefully they will be redeemed. But they are lost souls. They have moved away from the organization, because the organization is the path to salvation at all cost. And then the cults normally assume a martyr complex, a martyr or persecution complex. That is, as people criticize them, they see the criticism as being persecution, and persecution as a legitimization that their belief system is correct. So they first believe that they'll be persecuted for their belief systems. When people are criticizing their belief system, they turn around, see the criticism as a fulfillment of the promise that they pronounce regarding themselves. Therefore, they are correct in what they believe. These are the keys, some of the key qualities. There are others, but these are some of the key qualities of cults. You ask yourself the question then, why do people join cults? The point is, people do not knowingly join cults. Very, very important. People do not knowingly join cults. You may be a part of a cult and may not know it. Why? Because you would not knowingly present yourself or expose yourself or join an organization that stifles your thinking, that takes total control of you. No, you join an organization that is a legitimate church, a legitimate club, a legitimate political party, etc. That's what you join, an organization that gives you social and spiritual acceptance and love and satisfy your need for love and acceptance. We all want love and acceptance. And normally, that's what people sign up for to begin with, an organization that gives them spiritual and social acceptance. Not only that, we join an organization that presents a pathway to salvation spiritually, economically, and socially. So people join what they consider to be a legitimate organization, and an organization when on the face of it, this is a pathway, man, to salvation. People do not normally join cults. They join legitimate organizations that satisfy the need for a sincere, genuine lifestyle. Most people, rightly so, are tired of a lifestyle that is not up to moral standard. We all have our internal standard, and we always seek to be of a higher moral level. So people join organizations that are serious about morality and a genuine Christian lifestyle. And when an organization comes that presents a law and order, clear boundaries, thus said the Lord, I can see it precisely from Scripture. These are the rules, these are the regulations, these are the boundaries, these are the parameters. Do this, do not do this, etc. This is righteousness. This is what God's accept. Then people tend to join such situation. Lawrence Kohlberg, the social psychologist, says that we all operate, or most people, not all, most people operate at the law and order stage. That is, at the stage of uncritical acceptance of rules and regulations of society, the stage where people tend to obey rules for the sake of the rules. A stage where if you disobey the rule, you ought to be punished. If you obey the rules, you ought to be rewarded. It's called the law and order stage, stage 4 of moral development. There are other stages of development, 5 and 6, etc., which has to do with the principal stage, which is not totally in line with the law and order stage. But whereas most people operate at the law and order stage and they want clear boundaries, then when an organization comes that presents clear boundaries, that emphasize the law, that emphasize morality, then they are inclined, most people are inclined to be a part or to join such organizations. So what then happens to people when they join these organizations, when they join these cults unknowingly? Number one, they receive benefits from the organizations. Very, very important. There are benefits, social benefits, practical benefits, financial benefits many times. It's not for nothing. Yes, there are benefits. And so, because benefits are received, the organization becomes family. They bond with other members of the organization. It becomes a family now. Identity begins to merge. Comfort now is happening socially. And we are social beings as human beings. And within the organization, without knowing it, people learn to group think. That is, they begin to think like the group, my God, without knowing it. It's amazing how many people just accept something because that's what their group accepts. They have not checked it out for themselves, or they have not checked it out for themselves critically, or they have not realized that they have not checked it out for themselves. They just group think. Yes, we as human beings, we tend to group think. The group leaders become the psychological parents of the group. So the group leader is now the parent. They follow the group's thinking through its leaders at all cost, from a sense of loyalty and devotion to God. That's the other point of it, which is very, very important. There is a sense of loyalty and devotion to God in the obedience of the group. You see, people do these things from a sense of loyal devotion to God. They see themselves as doing the right thing. Within that context, one may begin to experience some of God's blessings within that environment. As such, the blessings solidify their position within the environment. You see, God is of such that he loves us despite who we are, wherever we find ourselves. And he will bless us just the same. And because many times people receive a blessing within a particular environment, receive blessing holding certain theological positions, they use the blessings to confirm that their theological position is correct. My brothers, my sisters, there are many times when theologically you may be wrong. However, God blesses you still, because you see, in those situations, God is not rewarding your theology, he's rewarding your faith. It's called grace. We've got to be careful how we use the blessings of God to solidify or to affirm our theology. Very careful, very careful. Moving on, what happens to people? What happens to people who join cults? They accept the isolation as imposed by the family, because another characteristic of the cult is that they tend to isolate people from their family, from their loved ones, etc., to greater or lesser extent. And after a time, the individual becomes to accept the isolation and feel good. So the group's beliefs and way of life become their new identity. New identity. The total person is changed into a new person. They are baked and cooked into a completely new personality, new identity, new situation. We know the story of the proverbial frog. The frog is in the lukewarm water and enjoying it very much. The temperature has gradually increased, but the frog continues to enjoy it until it is so hot the frog is baked and cooked without knowing it. That's what happens to people. Within cults, the conditioning is gradual until a new personality is formed. And if the leader says to you, drink poison, slash the throat of someone, jump over the cliff, stay within the fire, you will do it. You will do it because it has been a gradual situation. And I want to say that there are many wonderful organizations which will not exhibit the outrageous behavior of cults, the extreme cults, but they are gradual mind-controlling organization with a personality at the top that does not, encourage dissenting thinking, that discourage critical thinking, etc. Those organizations are also cults at the lower end of the continuum, but they are conditioning people to accept and behave at the extreme levels of cultic behavior. And everything along the continuum is wrong. So why do people stay within cults? Again, people do not stay within cults knowingly. Because you see, they do not accept the organization of cults. So you may be in an organization that is cultic, but you do not accept the organization of cult. No cult see themselves, hey, I'm a part of a cult, and it's not a good organization, I'm staying within it. No, it's a good organization, and I'm staying within it. It's a path of salvation. It's God's special people. We have a leader who is by God. God is communicating through the leader, and God is speaking through the leader. Therefore, I'm going to stay within this organization. The organization is my family. And so they're within a cultic environment without knowing it. And when one is asked or prodded to move outside of the cult, then a particular psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance occurs. When people are encouraged to leave cults, cognitive dissonance occurs. What is cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance describes the discomfort, the fear, the anger, the mental turmoil that we experience when our established, cherished beliefs and actions are challenged. Think about it. When our established, cherished beliefs and actions, theology and doctrines are challenged, when we are brought possibly that there could be something wrong with what we believe theologically from our authority figures, from our organization, then we go through cognitive dissonance, mental turmoil and anguish. And such, we will violently reject the new position, violently reject the supposed new doctrine, and we hold on to the old information. We stay within the cult. We stay within the organization. It is family, because the mental turmoil to accept otherwise is too painful. I can't afford that. I will stay where I am. It is easier. So how can you know if you're involved in a cult? Ask yourself the following questions. And if you're answering yes to most of these questions, irrespective of the nature of the organization, irrespective of how you are seeing the organization, you're either in a full-blown cult or a more dressed-up cult or a cultish organization, an organization that may be having strong cultic tendencies. So ask yourself the following questions. Number one, does my church or group present itself as God's most favored group on the planet, the one true church? This is one of the key signs of a culture. Take careful note of this one. This is on the foundation. Most cults have this quality. They present themselves as being the most authentic body of believers on the planet. Ask yourself the question, is there an authority figure whose teachings rank close to or above the Bible? All of the cults, there's dangerous things happen. There's always an authority figure whose teachings rank close to or above the Bible. Ask yourself the question, am I taught to see others who disagree with the teachings of my organization as lost souls or satanic? If you're taught to see others who disagree with the teachings of your organization as either lost, satanic, cannot be right any at all, you are part of a system that has cultic tendencies or is a full-blown cult. Am I encouraged to listen to the opinion of others, or do I feel intolerant of other belief systems? You see, you may already be conditioned into a certain extent in which you have a strong level of intolerance to other belief systems, you know. You've been cooked cultically. Am I encouraged to listen to the opinion of others, or do I feel intolerant of other belief systems? Check out yourself. Do I enjoy the prestige or the benefits of the organization, even though I see its weaknesses and shortcomings? If you're enjoying the prestige and the benefits of the organization, even though you are aware of its shortcomings, it means that you are already being cooked cultically. Am I having second thoughts about the truth claims of the organization? Is there something in the back of your head saying, something is not right here? If your guts is saying to you that something is not right, you may not be able to pencil it out logically on paper or read it from Bible, but there's something deep down inside of you saying, something is not right here. Sign number one, you could be part of a cultic situation. When you think of leaving this organization, does the thought of leaving fill you with dread and a feeling of eternal damnation? You see, in a true Christian organization, you should be able to leave and feed in another pasture. If the context in which you find yourself, you are made to believe that if you leave, you're going to go to hell, that is sign of being in a cultic organization. Ask yourself the question, in addition to the Bible, is there another personality whose writings and teachings are supreme, or even if not supreme, are highly regarded and useful for behavior and instructions? Watch out for the authority figure that is number one, sometimes even parallel with the Bible. Ask yourself the question, have I come to accept the Bible? Have I come to accept from the Bible that my organization is the most prestigious group of Christians on the planet, the one true church, Remnant Church? Do I feel good and privileged to be a part of this organization? Does the organization teach me how to study the Bible? Very important now. Does the organization teaches me how to study the Bible, or does it simply encourage me to study the Bible without giving me the tools of proper hermeneutics, the tools of proper biblical interpretation? Are you taught how to study the Bible, or are you just encouraged how to study the Bible? If the organization is not teaching you how to study the Bible, giving the tools of hermeneutics, then it means that all that you are receiving and understanding is basically through the lens of the organization, and without knowing it, you're not thinking for yourself. How can you know if you're involved in a cult? Are there some beliefs that are contrary to logical thinking? Do I feel isolated from my family and loved ones who are of a different persuasion? If you're scoring yes on most of these questions, then you are part of a cult, an organization with, or part of an organization with strong cultic tendencies. If you're scoring yes on most of these questions, then you are part of an organization with strong cultic tendencies. Some safeguards against being or joining a cult. 1, practice to think independently. 2, practice to research things for yourself. Read some more. Most of us do not read enough. Read some more. Listen some more. There's so much that we can listen to. But listen some more. As you read, as you listen, read materials that oppose the position of your church. This is important for balance. Each organization has its logic, but it can be logically wrong. Therefore, you need to read dissenting or opposing literature, information, etc. That's what, for example, scholars do. That's what scientists do. They look at the opposing position, and it helps them to see the validity of their position or the invalidity of their position. If you're only reading and studying what your organization presents, you are setting up yourself for a cultic situation. You are being, or more than likely, you are just now interpreting reality, Bible, through the lens of the organization, because you're just seeing through one glass, through one vision, one view. Very important to read opposing information. Unless you are carefully examining opposing ideas, you are being cultic in your study without knowing it. Unless you are carefully examining opposing ideas. You're being cultic in your study without knowing it. Learn how to study the Bible. Learn what the Bible meant historically before determining what it means in the present. Key principle of Bible study: what it meant before what it means. Because you see, that someone supports a teaching, presumably from the Bible, does not mean that the Bible is communicating that teaching. Yes, you can open the Bible and read and synthesize anything from the Bible. But when you learn the proper methods of Bible study, you realize that not everything that someone says the Bible says is really what the Bible is saying. Very, very important. Also, to safeguard against a cultic situation, a very, very important principle that I find, and that is recognize that the cause, underline the word cause, the cause of salvation is a person, that is Jesus Christ, not correct doctrines about the person. Two very important distinctions. The cause of salvation is Jesus, not correct understandings or doctrines about Jesus. We are not saved by doctrines. God did not send a doctrine to the cross to save his people. He sent a person, Jesus Christ. And God unilaterally saves people because of Jesus, not based on their knowledge or understandings of Jesus. Very, very important. Knowledge or understanding of Jesus are only means that help us to enjoy our salvation, not the cause of our salvation. And I invite you to drill down in Galatians 2:16 and 17, Romans 3:21, Ephesians 2:6-8. When you look at those under the microscope, you realize that it's teaching this thing, that God saves us unilaterally in Jesus, and salvation is not based on our knowledge of Jesus, but it's based on Jesus. When this principle is understood carefully, then we are in a position to re-examine our positions, whichever organization we find ourselves in. Because if you're not saved by correct information, correct doctrines, then if you re-examine your position and let's say you get it wrong, you're not lost. If you're sincere in your thinking, because it's not correct information in the first place that saves you, it's a person. And if you still have the person with some misinformation, you're still saved. Every single person on the planet in the final end will be saved with some misinformation. That's the reason why God made the person of Christ the cause of our salvation and not our understandings of Jesus, because our understanding will always fall short. But when we have the person, relationship with the person, we are saved. We will be saved. And when such is understood, you can re-examine your position. And if you're in a cultic environment, you can get out and feel free to get out. In my book, Justification by Faith, more than a concept of a person, and also the person of Jesus calls obligatory Sabbath, and the journey of the New Testament in becoming a book, I elaborate on the science of salvation. I invite you, access these books on Amazon. I invite you to read more on the cause of salvation there. When the gospel is clearly understood, it is a great test, antidote, vaccine against a cultic environment. Moving on. So how do I redeem cult members? If members of my family or someone I know, loved ones in a cult, how do I redeem those persons? I say to you, love. That's the number one thing. Do not ostracize. Love. Be kind. Be courteous. Go out of your way to love them. Nothing wins more than love. And you cannot argue or fight or beat or force one out of a cult, but you stand a chance if you love them, because it's very difficult, extremely difficult, sometimes impossible to get some persons out of cult because they would have been cooked for years within that organization, the system. But if you love, you stand a great chance. So be loving, be kind, stay in close communication. Stay in close communication. always communicate at all times. Keep the communications lines open in different ways, in different needs. And that will help to pull out of a cult. Not guaranteed, but help. You may have to study the beliefs of the cult. If a person is involved in a cultic organization, you may have to spend some time to study the belief system of the cult and to be able to point out the inconsistencies and the illogical positions and the weaknesses of the organization. So perchance you may create a little cognitive dissonance. Perchance you may get the person thinking. That may help as well. You may also have to show the person that, hey, your behavior, your association is causing so much hurt to the family. These things that you're practicing, look how you're hurting your father, your mother, your sister, your brother. Appeal to the conscience may help. Sometimes you may need to get professional help in some tactful manner. And of course, last, but by certain no means least, from beginning to end, you've got to pray and ask for divine help. When people are locked within a cult, they do not know that they're in a cult, and they do not want to get out. And it's almost impossible to get them out. You need the power of God on your side. Sad to say that many Christian organizations have strong cultic tendencies. They may not be outlandish cults like the David Koreshes or the Branch Davidian, etc., but they are along the continuum and they are conditioning people for membership in these more extreme cults. Whichever way it is on the continuum, there's really no excuse. And as you look at the characteristics of cults, many dressed up, well-accepted religious organizations have strong cultic tendencies. It's not good to be in a cultic environment because cults rob or diminish the ability of people to love other people. Because you see, within cults, doctrines become more important than people. Cults normally betray the gospel while purporting to uphold the gospel. Cult and cultic tendencies are dangerous. If you are in one, if you recognize it, get out. You may not commit murder, but you be involved in actions that slowly kill people over time. And many people are within religious organizations in which they are dying a slow death, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Think about it. I invite you to join an organization, Deacon Ministries International, in which critical, scholarly, and scientific culture is encouraged. After each sermon or presentation at Human Ministries International, you get the opportunity to ask the preacher, the presenter, questions on what he has just presented. You get the opportunity to agree or disagree with the sermon. That's how we do it at Human Ministries International. And we encourage critical thinking. We also encourage divergent theological positions. Yes, you can be a part of that family while not agreeing with all the tenets of the organization. One condition, however, you must be able to love and work with and accommodate those who see things differently from the way you see it. And we believe that if you can exhibit such love and patience and accommodation with those who see things differently from you are, then you can be a part of your family. That's what we encourage. That's how we believe it ought to be. As such, therefore, we encourage, and we have 3 tiers of membership. We have full membership, baptized members. We have associate members or dual membership, people who may or who may wish to be a part of their original organization, but they like our philosophy, they like our mission and what we stand for, and they want to support. We say you can be a dual membership. A cultic organization will not allow such, or let me say a organization with cultic tendencies cannot allow such. But we believe in unity, in diversity, or diversity in our unity. We believe in unity, not uniformity. You do not need to see things or believe the same belief in order to associate with each other in love. That's the gospel. I wish I had time to explain that some more. So we accommodate divergent theological position, but again, you must exhibit love for God who believes otherwise. Our motto is where the love of Jesus motivates. At Dikayoma Ministries International, where the love of Jesus motivates. Our physical position is in Spanish Town, 668 Brunswick Avenue in Spanish Town, Jamaica for now. That's where we are. However, you can find us on Zoom, our Zoom link, 883-3844 or 4496, password uppercase DMI. Or you can visit us online at dikayoma.com. www.dikayoma.com. Telephone us, WhatsApp at 876-822-9099 or 407-669-9773. I run those WhatsApp number again. They're on your screen, 876-822-9099 or 407-669-9773. Give us a call. We'll be happy to give you further details regarding the Dikayoma Ministries International. We worship on Saturdays, but we are not Sabbatarians as such. That's just the chosen time for worship. We also worship on Wednesdays. In fact, we worship every day. So I should say we meet for congregational worship on Saturdays, full stop. But we are not Sabbatarians. Call us and we can explain further. Wednesday nights, we have prayer meeting and you'll enjoy being prayed for. Visit us on Facebook or YouTube at Clinton Baldwin. Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoy this presentation on cults, and it will help you along your journey to re-examine and re-evaluate where you are to ensure that you are where you ought to be. God bless you real good. See you another time.